Samsung is at it again, a new device, a new generation, and it's not exploding this time, which is actually a fantastic thing. But because of the issues they had with that battery in the Note 7, there is a downgrade in the new device. The Samsung S8 and S8 Plus is gonna get reviewed today. Well, the S8 anyway. I did not get the Plus. Today we have the S8, as you can see to the right of me, and I'll get that in my hands in a second. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about this S8, this beautifully designed glass phone. And just from the onset, the word glass just doesn't seem as strong as you would expect. Well, no, you don't expect strength from glass. Even though it's Gorilla Glass 5, it's not the best strength ever on a phone. It is actually the worst phone, rated by many other places like iFixit, because it's the easiest to break. And all the tests that go around the internet, all those smash tests, really do tell you the truth. It is not a strong phone, and if you drop it, it will crack, break, and that'll be it. Both sides of the phone are glass, and its design finally has a rounded shape on the corners and the edges. It is no longer a sharp end like the Galaxy S7 Edge, which is the phone I'll be comparing it to because that's the one, obviously the previous version, and it's also one that I owned. Now I'm on the S8. Personally, I prefer the shape of the S8 than the S7. The S7 is actually much wider, and I found it quite hard to get my thumb across the side of the screen and get those icons on the left, or when I'm typing, trying to get somewhere to the left. One-handed operation with the S8 is actually really good. So guys, if you're looking for a single-handed phone, the S8 is actually really nice. It has a really big screen and it is a lot taller, but it is a lot thinner on the sides, but the screen size stays the same thanks to that Infinity display that Samsung is touting as a gorgeous, and it is gorgeous, edge-to-edge display, which is fantastic, and that's one of the benefits of this phone. The screen is pretty much everywhere. I mean, look at that. The only bars you have is on the top a little black bar where the headset goes, and on the bottom a little black bar that doesn't really have anything. But what you'll notice, first of all, is there's no button. So let's go with that. That front-facing area there, no physical buttons. The one button that you kind of get, which is a bit of a fake button, is that if you press with pressure down in the area of the button, it will make like a little click. And it's a motorized fake click. And funnily enough, it's not pressure sensitive screen. It actually kind of calculates how much finger area there is on it. I tried testing it by putting just pressure without actually using a finger, or it doesn't make that thing. So don't think of it as a button like the iPhone 7 that actually has pressure sensitive. So when you do put a little bit of pressure, it will click on it. It doesn't matter if you're using a finger. The next thing is, I suppose, is that the rounded edges are, like I mentioned, they're much less sharp. They're quite nice, and the buttons on them are really good. The buttons are metal. Everything around it is metal, obviously, except the glass front and back. There is no more camera bump on the bottom. It's we'll get to the fingerprint there in later, but the bump for the camera is gone. The S6 had one of the biggest bumps, and that was absolutely terrible. When you put it on top of the table, the glass and the little bezel there would always get scratched from the camera. And then obviously the S7 had a much lesser bump, but it was still there, but it wasn't as bad. It was actually pretty good, and when you put a case on it, obviously you couldn't see it. Now, I don't have a case for this just yet. I've been using it for about 2 weeks with no case, and I found it to be quite fine. You just gotta be super careful with it. Now, without using a case, the front does not scratch. That Gorilla 5 glass is super strong, and anything like your keys or coins isn't gonna scratch this. Concrete will probably scratch that surface, but the back is pretty bad. Everything from keys to coins is gonna scratch it. I've got micro scratches on here already just from being in my pocket with my keys, and it's just really bad. The front, perfect, the back, not. So if you are getting a case, make sure you get a case just to protect that nice jet black back. Now this color is awesome. The black is, I really like it. I don't really like the other colors. Silver, gold, not my thing. Obviously some people prefer it, and that will also depend how scratchy it gets. Probably the silver, you won't see it as bad, but the black is quite noticeable. But if you are comparing it to the iPhone 7, that's the jet black version, that thing is a scratch magnet. In fact, Apple themselves say and recommend a case for that phone, so you wouldn't want to have that out at all. This should be fine. in where there will be wear and tear on it over time. Now the next thing is using the phone and that issue with that fingerprint sensor on the back. Personally, I have no issue at all. All over the internet, people are complaining about the placement of the fingerprint, but I just don't care. It's fine. I take the phone, I tap it, and the phone unlocks. How quick is that? No issues at all. And when I have it on here, I'm not really touching that camera. And that's what people have been complaining about, is that you'll be touching that camera and you're gonna be smudging it. Actually, you're not, because that little glass on the camera is pretty good. It doesn't take any of your fingerprints onto it, and the only time you really need to clean it is if you're gonna do some sort of crazy photo shoot, because I haven't had any issues with it. Any issues at all. And guys, why I'm really touting the use of this is because of the next topic that I'm gonna talk about, and that is the iris and facial recognition scanner. The iris scanner is a mission to set up. I had an absolute hard time getting it to see my irises and actually scan it in. After that, once it was in, effectively, using it was another mission altogether. Did not like it at all. It was actually hard to use. I don't know, I've seen people on YouTube say that it's quite good to use. It actually works really well. I did not have that experience at all. Maybe because my eyes are a bit, really sort of tight from all the computer I've been using for the past years, to sort of squint. I tried to do it like this, but imagine having to go like this every time you want to open your phone. Not on it at all, and I do not like it at all. I am not using the iris scanner. The facial recognition, don't bother with that at all. It can be tricked by a simple printed photo of your face. It's like a toy. It's like a toy facial recognition. So that isn't even used to do your payments or any other password related thing. It's the iris and it's the fingerprint. I still think fingerprint is the best, and until we can get a fingerprint under the screen on the thumb, I still think this placement is fine. I would prefer it in the middle, just because if you're using the left and if you're using the right hand, both will be different, but at least I would know where it is. It is sometimes hard to find exactly where it is, as the bezels don't point it out, but if you get a case for it, it might be a little bit easier. So guys, personally, no issues with the fingerprint. I've been using it so much that I just don't have an issue with it. Seriously, I cannot stress it enough. It's fine. Don't let that be the reason of not getting this phone. Obviously, the camera isn't much different from the S7. It is still perfect. The photos are still the best on the market. I cannot say it enough, but the cameras from the S7 and the S8 are absolutely gorgeous. And even if they're a little bit oversaturated, it still looks great. Now, I know some people want to make sure their photos look perfect. You can actually take pictures in RAW format, then you take it to your computer, open it up one of those programs, probably not Photoshop. I don't think Photoshop does RAW unless you have one of those plugins. Anyway, you can take one of those programs and you can open it up and then really mess around with the settings. So it does take RAW photos. For all those guys who really want to get into photography, buy a DSLR camera. Come on, what do you expect from a camera? But if you are having to use it, this is great. RAW pictures coming straight out of your phone is fantastic. You can't always open it with every program, but there are programs that can open it. So just look out for that. It's not something easy. It is a bit of a professional in brackets that wants to use RAW photos. I think the photos with the autofocus and all that jazz is absolutely fine. I'm really looking at this phone from a very much a layman's perspective. Not many people are going to use the full features of this phone, and I'll do a full breakdown of all of the features, power features that I call it, in another video, but for now, it's just a simple review of usability. Now, the last thing I'm going to get up to is that Bixby button. Right now, Bixby is useless, alright? Don't need to beep that out. It's terrible and it's useless. It is just like a little card thing when you swipe left in most Android phones that people turn off. Now it's got a button that you press and it opens up Bixby, and it's useless. Absolutely useless. Few cards, few news things that you can subscribe to, but there's no point, really. Until Samsung brings out that command feature, or basically that assistance AI thing, Bixby is useless. So they're really betting on that assistant to come in and really make this button useful. You can remap it. There are apps that remap it. Even though Samsung tried to get around it, there are apps that really get it going, so you can use that, but it is a bit finicky. I don't recommend it, but if you must, you can get BX Actions, I think it's called, and it will do fine. It'll replace the button action. Like, you can get it to do the camera, even though this does double camera, but Again, it's up to you if you're really sick of it. Personally, I am, because every time I take it out of my pocket, I press it, and Bixby opens up, and it's laggy, and it's terrible, and Samsung, get rid of it. Let me change this button to something else, something useful, because that is the biggest gripe I have with this phone. Like I mentioned in the start, we spoke about the battery issues with Note 7, so this time Samsung decided that with this phone, we're gonna go safe and make the battery only 3000 milliamps, which to me is a cop-out. You had a Samsung S7 with a big battery. Why couldn't you do it same for this phone? I just don't understand it. The battery life, it's pretty bad for the S8, unfortunately. You'll get about 10% at the end of the day for a medium to heavy user. If you're a heavy user, you will be recharging before the end of the day. The one good thing about it is that charging from an official Samsung quick charge is super awesome. You can get 50% in like 30 minutes. It's been a blast to just put it on this wireless charger and have like 40% within 15-20 minutes. It's just been awesome. So quick charge is good, but if you can't get to a charger, you can put it into a save power mode. There's 2 levels of it that will give you extra hours. So you can get probably about 2 days out of the system on the most heaviest power saving settings. And I'll show you that in my tips and tricks video about this phone. So guys, in summary, is this phone worthwhile getting if you have a Samsung S7 Edge? Well, actually, I really like it. It's much better. See, I just pressed the Bixby button. How annoying is it? For me, the S7 Edge was too big, too clunky, and those edges were too sharp to hold without a case. It was a big phone, and I started liking the iPhone 6 because it was much smaller, much smoother. Right now, I just found the best of 2 worlds. The best design I have ever seen in a phone, plus the usability and having able to reach all the areas with my thumb as, well, basically as intended for a phone. If it's want a bigger phone, get the Plus, but for me, this is one of the coolest designs ever. Usability is also great. That button at the bottom is also really good, and the fingerprint does not bother me at all. Quality-wise, the screen is beautiful. Everything works really smooth and snappy. There are some slowdowns, guys. Remember, this is Android with a Samsung layer over the top, so don't expect it to be smooth 100% of the time. About 98% of the time is when it's just rocking my world. And so, if you want to upgrade for an S7 Edge, I think you should, if you can. It's probably time after the 2-year contract. You can still sell that phone for a couple of $100. If you're on the S6, definitely go for it. If you want to get a new phone, the S8 is one of the best phones you can get, and it's much better than the S6 and S7. Personally, I don't know how I managed to use the S7 and S6. I love those phones, but to me, this is a huge jump. It's not like a jump from an iPhone 6 to iPhone 7. This is a much bigger jump, and it actually feels like an upgrade, and actually feels like you're getting new features and a new phone that looks quite different. And that infinity screen, you just can't beat that edge-to-edge panel, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. The other side of it, if you're coming from Apple, you're going to enjoy a lot of features, a lot of things that you've really never thought about, like the fantastic camera that I just have to say is much better than iPhone 6 and 6S, just on par, maybe a little bit better than iPhone 7 in certain situations, but there's a lot of other videos out there you can look up if you want to compare both of them. If you're coming from an iPhone, because you're in the Apple ecosystem, the Android ecosystem is a little bit different, but personally, I prefer it. There's a lot more apps that can do a lot more things for you, and actually, it just works a lot better when you have an app drawer and not all your apps are just all on the screens like in the Apple. That to me feels old now. It's not innovative. And the way you can use the Android, which I will show you in the other video, the app drawer is actually fantastic. And thank you very much, Samsung, for doing that. I actually preferred that even stock Android. So finally, guys, this is a fairly expensive phone. If you're going to buy it outright, it's about $1,000 on Kogan. If you go to an Australian retailer, it's about $1,200, $1,400 for the Plus. And I guess it really depends if you want to buy the new phone. If you want to get the best phone there is, this is it. If you're happy to spend a bit of money, sell something on Gumtree, half and half upgrade, that's up to you. But for me, you're not going to get disappointed, my friends. A fantastic phone that is my daily driver, that I do not regret chucking out that 7 Edge, leaving the iPhone ecosystem. This phone is absolutely fantastic, and I cannot stress it enough. The design is beautiful, but get a case. Don't let this drop, because repairing it is an absolute nightmare. It'll cost you half the phone to repair that cracked glass. Guys, thank you very much for watching of my review of the S8. And I did not go into details because nobody cares how much GPU or CPU power this has. It's snappy, it's quick, it's fine. Do not care about the specifications, but I will go into detail with that in another video for those people who like it. But personally, an upgrade from the S7 Edge, much better in the hand, much better feeling, much better usability, and the new Android 7 and the Samsung layer on the top is actually quite nice. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe for more content. Thank you very much for watching this long video. I hope I didn't drone on too much. I got most of those key features out there, and there is heaps more videos coming about all sorts of other different things I have in mind. Thank you very much.